All right, let's explore Trewartha's idea of climate and how he classified it in a way that's easy and simple. Imagine you're learning this for the first time, and I'm explaining it to you step by step, word by word. What is a climatic region? 1. Climatic region. Think of a climatic region as a part of the Earth where the weather is similar. For example, the deserts of Africa and the deserts in Australia have hot, dry weather, even though they are far apart. So these areas can be put in the same region because they share similar climate patterns. Number 2, similar, not identical. This means that while places in the same region have weather that is a lot alike, it's not exactly the same. They just have big similarities in things like temperature, rainfall, and seasons. 3, examples. The tropical rainforests in the Amazon in South America and the Congo in Africa are similar. They both have hot temperatures and a lot of rain all year. Climate types and climate groups. Too many regions to count. If we tried to count every unique climate on Earth, there would be way too many because climates change a lot based on location. Trewartha's approach is to simplify all these regions into types and then into groups. Climate types. So he created climate types by grouping regions with similar weather patterns. Climate groups. Then he grouped these types into bigger climate groups. This way we can understand Earth's climate with only a few main groups instead of many tiny separate regions. Boundaries of climatic types. Soft boundaries. Imagine two different climates meeting. They don't have a hard line dividing them. Instead, they blend into each other slowly. For example, when you move from a desert to a grassland, it doesn't change all at once. The desert slowly has a little more grass, then bushes, then trees. Transition zones. These are areas where one type of climate merges into another. For instance, if you walk from a forest to a desert, the change happens gradually. Exception, mountain barrier. Sometimes a big mountain might suddenly change the climate on either side. One side might be rainy, while the other is dry because mountains block clouds and rain. Trewartha's 6 major climate groups. Trewartha split climates into 6 major groups. He used letters to name them. Here they are. 1. Group A, tropical climates, hot and usually wet, found near the equator like in the Amazon rainforest. It has warm temperatures all year with lots of rain. 2. Group B, dry climates. These are deserts and dry regions, places like the Sahara in Africa or deserts in the Middle East. They get very little rain and are usually hot. 3. Group C, subtropical climates. These have warm summers and mild winters. An example is southern parts of the USA, like Florida, where it's warm but not as hot as the tropics. 4. Group D, temperate climates. These have 4 seasons with warm summers and cold winters. Think of places like New York or Moscow, where you get snow in winter and warmth in summer. 5. Group E, boreal or subarctic climates. These are very cold climates with short, cool summers and long, harsh winters, found in places like northern Canada or Siberia in Russia. 6. Group F, polar climates. These are the coldest places on Earth, like Antarctica. They're covered in ice and temperatures are extremely low all year. 7. Highland climate H. This one is a bit different because it includes mountainous regions like the Himalayas. It's unique because mountains have all sorts of weather depending on height, so it's separate. Differences in naming from other systems. Trewartha's system is different from another famous climate classification called Köppen's system. Köppen also used letters to classify climates, but his names and letter combinations are a little different. For example, in Köppen's system, C also represents temperate climates, but Trewartha's symbols and rules change a bit to make the system simpler. Quick recap. 1. Climatic region, a place with similar weather. 2. Climate types, groups of regions with similar climates. 3. Climate groups, bigger groups combining types. 4. 6 major groups, A, B, C, E, F, and an extra H for mountains. 5. Soft boundaries, climates blend together in transition zones. This way of understanding climate helps scientists talk about the world's weather in a simpler way. And because of Trewartha's system, we can easily tell which parts of the world have similar weather without listing every tiny region. All right, let's go even deeper into explaining the tropical rainforest climate step by step in the easiest way possible. Hashtag 1. What is the tropical rainforest climate? Imagine a place that is hot and rainy almost all the time, every single day. This is what we call a tropical rainforest climate. In these places, the weather is warm, hot, because the sun shines strongly throughout the year. It rains a lot, often every day. Because of this constant warmth and rain, the area becomes a rainforest. These are the thick green forests filled with huge trees, colourful plants, and a lot of animals. Other names. Sometimes it's called the tropical wet climate because it's both tropical near the equator and wet. It's also called the equatorial climate because it's usually close to the equator, the middle part of Earth. Number 2, where can we find tropical rainforests? The tropical rainforest climate is mostly found near the equator. Here's how you can imagine it. The equator is the line that divides the Earth into two halves, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. Tropical rainforests are usually located 5 degrees to 10 degrees on either side of the equator, a few countries north and south of the equator. In some places, it stretches up to 15 degrees or even 25 degrees latitude away from the equator. Examples of tropical rainforest areas. 1. Amazon rainforest, found in South America, especially in Brazil, Peru, and Colombia. 2. Congo rainforest, located in Central Africa, mostly in the Democratic Republic of the Congo. 3. Southeast Asia, countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, and the Philippines. 4. Central America, countries like Panama, Costa Rica, and Guatemala. 5. Eastern Brazil, Eastern Madagascar, and some West Indies islands. These are just some of the places that have tropical rainforest climates. 3. Why is it always hot and rainy in these areas? There are a few main reasons why these areas have such hot and rainy weather. 1. Location near the equator. Because these places are near the equator, they get a lot of direct sunlight. The sunlight doesn't change much during the year, so it stays warm all year long. 2. The Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITCZ. This is a special zone near the equator where winds from the north and south come together. When these winds meet, they go up, and as they rise, they cool down and form clouds. These clouds then produce rain almost daily. 3. Doldrums. This area is also known as the doldrums, a zone near the equator with little wind but lots of humidity. This makes the air moist and unstable, which means it rains often. 4. What is near the tropical rainforest climate? Tropical rainforest climates are not alone. They are bordered by other types of climates. Savanna climate. On the north and south sides of the rainforest climate, there is the savanna climate. The savanna is different because it has a dry season and a wet season. In contrast, the rainforest climate is wet all year. China climate. On the eastern edges of continents, you might find China-type climates next to tropical rainforests. This climate has more seasonal changes than the tropical rainforest. 5. A closer look at the rainfall. Rainfall in tropical rainforest areas is very heavy. These regions get more rain than any other place on Earth. Frequent. It rains almost every day because of the moist, warm air. Fun fact, a scientist named Austin Miller noted that the typical tropical rainforest climate isn't exactly on the equator. It's actually a little north of it, between 2 degrees and 8 degrees. This area receives the most constant rainfall. Number 6, more about the tropical rainforest environment. Very humid. Because of the constant rain and warm temperatures, the air in these areas is full of moisture. It feels warm and sticky. Dense forests. Trees grow very tall, close together, and there are many layers of plants. Wildlife. You'll find a variety of animals here, such as monkeys, parrots, frogs, snakes, and lots of insects. Tropical rainforests are known for having the highest biodiversity, meaning the most kinds of plants and animals. 7. Recap. Key points to remember. 1. Hot and wet all year. The tropical rainforest climate is always hot and rainy. 2. Location. Found mostly near the equator, between 5 degrees and 10 degrees latitude, but sometimes farther. 3. Regions. Examples include the Amazon, Congo, Southeast Asia, and parts of Central America. 4. Rainy zone, ITCZ. Frequent rain due to rising moist air near the equator. 5. Boundaries, bordered by savanna and China-type climates. The tropical rainforest climate creates a lush green environment that's very important for the Earth. It's like the planet's oxygen factory, producing a lot of the air we breathe and supporting a huge number of species. All right, let's go even deeper into each part of the tropical rainforest climate's temperature, breaking everything down as simply as possible. One, location and why it's always warm. Where is it? The tropical rainforest climate is found near the equator, which is the middle part of Earth. Specifically, it's about 5 degrees to 10 degrees north and south of this line. Why does this matter? Because it's close to the equator, the sun is almost directly overhead all year long. This means the sun's rays hit this area more directly, making it hotter. The days and nights are always about 12 hours each, so it's sunny and warm all the time, with no long nights or shorter days. 2. Getting lots of sun, insolation. What is insolation? Insolation is just a word for the sunlight or heat that reaches Earth. Areas near the equator get more direct insolation, so they stay warmer. Average temperature. In tropical rainforest areas, the average monthly temperature is always high, above 18 degrees Celsius. In many places, it's even higher, about 24 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees. Example, imagine it's like a warm summer day all the time. Even if you travel across seasons, you'll still feel warmth in these regions with barely any change. That's number 3. Very small temperature changes over the year annual range. What's the annual range? The annual range is the difference between the warmest and coolest months of the year. Why is it so small? In the rainforest climate, there's almost no difference in temperature between months. It's warm in January, warm in June, warm in December, almost the same temperature all year. Usually the difference is only 2 degrees to 3 degrees Celsius between the warmest and coolest months. Examples, Iquitos, Peru in the Amazon basin, has an annual temperature range of just 2 degrees Celsius. Ocean Island in the Pacific Ocean has 0 degrees Celsius range, meaning there is no temperature difference at all throughout the year. This lack of big seasonal temperature change is unique to tropical rainforests. 4. Temperature changes during the day, diurnal range. What's the diurnal range? This is the difference between the warmest temperature of the day and the coolest temperature at night. In tropical rainforests, the diurnal range is bigger than the annual range. So while the temperature doesn't change much over the year, it does change each day. It can go up by 5 degrees to 14 degrees during the day and then drop again at night. Example, at Bolobo in Africa, the annual temperature range over the year is only 1 degree Celsius, but the daily range is about, even though it doesn't get very cold at night, still above 15 degrees Celsius, people feel a chill because they're used to such warmth. This is why people say night is the winter of the tropics. 5. Daytime heat feels even hotter because of humidity. What is humidity? Humidity is the amount of water vapor or moisture in the air. In tropical rainforests, the air is very humid, meaning there's a lot of moisture in the air. Why does this make it feel hotter? When the air is humid, sweat doesn't evaporate easily, so our bodies don't cool down as well. Because of the moisture, it feels hotter than it actually is. Typical daytime temperature. During the day, temperatures might go up to around 38 degrees Celsius. This is already warm, but the high humidity makes it feel even warmer. 6. Cloud cover and why nights stay warm. What happens at night? At night, even though the sun isn't out, the temperature doesn't drop very much because thick clouds trap some of the heat close to the ground. The high humidity keeps the air warm. What about early mornings? Sometimes nocturnal cooling at night causes dew, tiny water droplets on surfaces, or ground fog to form, especially in early mornings. This is one way the rainforest cools down a bit before the heat of the next day. 7. Summary, key things to remember. 1. Close to the equator, tropical rainforest climates are near the equator, so they get direct sunlight all year long. 2. Always warm. Monthly temperatures are usually above 18 degrees Celsius, with averages around 24 degrees Celsius to 27 degrees. 3. Small annual temperature range. There's almost no temperature change over the year, only about 2 degrees to 3 degrees Celsius. 4. Big daily range, diurnal range. The temperature changes more within a single day by 5 degrees to 14 degrees. 5. High humidity. The air is very humid, making it feel even warmer and keeping the nights from cooling off too much. 6. Cloud cover keeps it warm at night. Thick clouds and humidity trap heat, meaning nights don't cool down a lot. This tropical rainforest climate, with its constant warmth, high humidity, and lush vegetation, creates the perfect environment for rainforests to grow and thrive. Let's dive deeper into the pressure and winds in tropical rainforest areas, keeping it as simple as possible. 1. Calm area near the equator, the doldrums. What are the doldrums? The doldrums are a calm area near the equator, right in the middle of Earth. Here, there's very little wind most of the time, so it feels still and quiet. Why is it calm here? In the doldrums, the temperature stays hot all year. There aren't big differences in temperature between seasons or between day and night. This even temperature means there's little difference in air pressure. Pressure is how much the air presses down on us. So, without big changes in pressure, the wind doesn't blow hard. Hammer 2. What happens when air gets hot in the doldrums? Hot air rises. When air near the ground heats up, it rises into the sky. This rising movement creates what we call convection currents, warm air going up while cooler air comes down. What happens to the rising air? As the warm air rises, it cools down the higher it goes. When air cools, it can't hold as much moisture, water in the air, so the water condenses, turns into tiny droplets, forming clouds. These clouds often bring rain. That's why it rains so much in the tropical rainforest. 3. Trade winds, bringing moisture from the oceans. What are trade winds? Trade winds are steady winds that blow toward the equator. They come from areas farther away from the equator and bring a lot of moisture, water in the air, from the warm tropical oceans. How do the trade winds work? These winds travel over the warm oceans and pick up moisture. When they reach the calm doldrums, they rise up and cool, which causes even more rain. Why are they important? The trade winds are like a delivery system, bringing moist air to the rainforest regions. Without these winds, there would be much less rain and the rainforest would be less green and lush. 4. Shifting of trade winds, how they cool different areas. Do the trade winds stay in the same place? No, the trade winds don't stay in exactly the same place all year. They shift slightly with the seasons. What does this shifting do? This shift brings moist and cooler air to different areas in the equatorial region during different times of the year. Even though the trade winds are warm, they help people feel cooler by helping sweat evaporate, which cools the skin. Hammer 5. Differences between inland and coastal areas. Inland, middle areas. In the center of the rainforest, far from the coast, the air can feel hot, sticky, and uncomfortable. This is called sultry or oppressive weather. Coastal, near the sea areas, the areas near the ocean have a cool sea breeze, a gentle wind from the ocean. This breeze makes the coast feel cooler than the inland areas. Example, if you're at a beach in a tropical rainforest area, the cool sea breeze feels refreshing, especially compared to places further inland that don't get this breeze. Hammer 6. Squall winds and thunderstorms. Temporary relief. What are squall winds? Squall winds are strong, sudden gusts of wind that happen during thunderstorms. Why are they important? These sudden winds bring temporary cool air, which helps people feel more comfortable for a short time. Even though they don't last long, they make a big difference, especially on a hot day. 7. Summary, how pressure and winds work together in the rainforest. 1. Doldrum zone. Near the equator, it's calm with light winds because the temperature and pressure stay mostly the same all year. 2. Hot air rises and brings rain. Warm air goes up, cools, and turns into rain clouds. This is why rainforests get so much rain. 3. Trade winds bring moisture. Trade winds blow toward the equator, bringing moisture from the oceans, which adds to the rainfall. 4. Seasonal shifts for cooling. Trade winds shift slightly during the year, spreading moist, cooler air to different areas in the equatorial region. 5. Inland versus coastal. Inland feels hot and sticky, while coastal areas get a cooling sea breeze. 6. Squall winds from storms. Strong winds from thunderstorms cool things down temporarily, giving a bit of relief from the heat. This combination of calm, rising warm air, steady trade winds, and occasional thunderstorms creates the hot, humid, and rainy conditions that make tropical rainforests so lush and full of life. All right, let's go through each part step by step in the simplest way possible to understand why equatorial regions, places near the equator, get so much rain and what makes their weather unique. 1. Constant rainfall in equatorial regions. How much rain? Places near the equator get heavy rain almost all year round. It's very different from places that only get rain in certain seasons. Examples: Iquitos, Peru, South America, gets about 261 meters of rain each year. Akassa in Africa gets about 366 centimeters each year. Ocean Island in the Pacific Ocean gets around 213 centimeters annually. Why does it rain so much here? Equatorial regions are warm and have a lot of moisture in the air. This moisture turns into clouds and rain regularly because the air here is always moving upward, cooling and forming rain. Why so much rain in equatorial regions? Several factors cause constant heavy rain in these regions. Let's break down the main reasons. A. Warm, moist air rising. What happens to warm air? Air near the equator is very warm because the sun shines directly overhead. This warm air also has a lot of moisture, water vapor in it, because it's close to oceans and rivers. What does rising air do? When warm, moist air rises, it cools down as it goes higher. Cooling turns the water vapor in the air into tiny water droplets. These droplets form clouds. When the clouds get heavy enough, it rains. B. The doldrums, calm belt near the equator. What are the doldrums? The doldrums are a calm, quiet area near the equator where winds are very light and the air is warm and humid. Why are doldrums good for rain? In the doldrums, warm, moist air easily rises up, forming heavy rain showers. Because this area is always warm and moist, it's perfect for constant rain. C. Mountains create extra rain, orographic rain. How do mountains affect rain? When moist winds blow toward mountains, the wind has to go up the side of the mountain. As the air rises up the mountain, it cools, forming clouds and rain on the mountain slopes. Example: near the Cameroon Mountains in Africa, this process causes very heavy rain, up to 1,000 centimeters a year. D. Trade winds meeting. What are trade winds? Trade winds are winds that blow toward the equator from the northeast and southeast. These winds meet near the equator in an area called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITCZ. How do trade winds cause rain? When these winds meet, they push the warm air up. As the air goes higher, it cools, forms clouds, and brings heavy rain. 3. Thunderstorms and disturbances add more rain. Freak thunderstorms. In equatorial areas, thunderstorms happen a lot. A thunderstorm is when there's sudden heavy rain along with lightning and thunder. Atmospheric disturbances. Small changes in the air pressure and temperature also make clouds form quickly, leading to more rain. 4. Cloudy weather almost all the time. How much cloud cover? Equatorial areas are covered with clouds about 60% of the time. The sky is rarely completely clear. What types of clouds? Most clouds here are cumulus clouds. These are big, fluffy clouds that bring rain showers. 5. Humidity and heat. Feel uncomfortable. High humidity. Humidity means there's a lot of moisture in the air. In equatorial regions, humidity is very high, making it feel hot and sticky. Nights are hot too. Even at night, it feels warm because the high humidity traps the heat. Why is it so uncomfortable? The air is so moist that sweat doesn't dry quickly. This can make people feel very hot and uncomfortable. 6. Clouds peak in the afternoon. When are clouds thickest? The sky is most cloudy between 3 and 4 p.m. This is because the sun heats the ground during the day, causing the air to rise and form more clouds by the afternoon. When is the sky clearer? In the early morning and night, skies are usually clearer because the ground has cooled, so there's less rising air to form clouds. Amna 7, summary, why equatorial regions get so much rain. In summary, warm, moist air rises. The warm, humid air near the equator rises, cools, and turns into rain. 2. The doldrums, this calm, humid area is perfect for creating rain clouds. 3. Mountains create extra rain. Mountains force moist air to rise, cool, and cause rain on their slopes. 4. Trade winds meet and lift air. The meeting of trade winds lifts air, which cools and forms rain clouds. 5. Thunderstorms and small disturbances, thunderstorms and minor air changes add to the rainfall. 6. Constant cloud cover and high humidity. Thick clouds and high humidity make the air feel hot and heavy. 7. Clouds peak in the afternoon. The warm afternoon causes the most cloud buildup, while mornings and nights are clearer. This is why equatorial regions are among the rainiest places on Earth and have lush tropical rainforests. All right, let's break this down into the simplest, easiest to understand steps. We'll cover why there's less sunlight, how rain happens, and why it's always warm but never too hot in tropical rainforests. 1. Why tropical rainforests get less sunlight. What is insolation? Insolation is simply the sunlight or solar energy that reaches the Earth's surface. More insolation means more heat from the sun. Why is there less sunlight in the tropical rainforest? Even though tropical rainforests are near the equator, they get less sunlight than other regions farther from the equator. This is because the tropical rainforest has many clouds covering the sky almost all the time. Clouds act like a shield, blocking sunlight from reaching the ground, so these areas don't get as much sunlight as you might expect for places near the equator. Number 2. Temperatures in tropical rainforests. Why isn't it extremely hot? Because of the thick clouds and frequent rain, the temperature doesn't rise too high in these regions. In places like deserts where there are few clouds, the sun shines directly on the ground, causing the temperatures to get extremely hot. But in tropical rainforests, clouds keep it a little cooler by blocking some of the sun's heat. 3. Rainfall and thunderstorms in the rainforest. Convectional rainfall. This type of rainfall is very common in tropical rainforests. Here's how it works. 1. During the day, the ground gets warm, heating the air above it. 2. This warm air rises and cools down as it goes higher. 3. When the air cools, it forms clouds, and soon rain starts to fall. This rain is called convectional rainfall because it's caused by the upward movement or convection of warm air. Thunderstorms and lightning. Often the rising warm air creates big clouds called cumulonimbus cloud, which bring heavy rain, thunder, and lightning. In places close to the equator, this can happen 75 to 150 times a year. So it rains heavily and often has thunder and lightning. Number 4, other types of rain. Cyclones and easterly waves. What are cyclones and easterly waves? Besides convectional rainfall, tropical rainforests also get rain from weak cyclones and easterly waves, winds that move from the east. These rainstorms cover a larger area than convectional rain. Sometimes rain can start and stop throughout the day and night. Longer periods of rain. When cyclones or easterly waves bring rain, it can last for hours and the sky stays cloudy for a long time. Number 5. Lack of violent hurricanes in equatorial areas. Why no hurricanes? Hurricanes don't typically form close to the equator because they need specific wind conditions that aren't present there. But if you go a bit farther from the equator, about 10 degrees north or south, you might find hurricanes in some coastal areas or islands. 6. Rainfall patterns across the year. No dry season. Tropical rainforests do not have a dry season. They get rain all year round. However, some months get more rain than others. Monthly minimum rainfall. Every month there's at least 6 centimeters of rain, even in the driest month. Example of seasonal differences. In Belém, Amazon Valley, March is the wettest month with 28 days of rain. November is less rainy with about 10 rainy days. 7. Dependable rainfall. What makes the rainfall dependable? Tropical rainforests get a lot of rain each year, so even if one year is a bit drier or wetter than another, there's still enough rain overall. This consistency is very important because it means that plants and crops in these regions almost always get enough water to grow well. 8. Stable temperatures, but rainfall can vary. Temperature stability. Temperatures in tropical rainforests don't change much throughout the year. They are warm all the time.
Rainfall variations. Rainfall can vary.
Some years have a bit more rain and some have a bit less. Droughts in tropical rainforests. Though rare, droughts, periods with less rain, can happen in the rainforest. If this happens, certain crops may suffer because of high temperatures and high evaporation, which dries out the soil quickly. At 9, summary, key points of tropical rainforest climate. 1. Less sunlight due to clouds. Heavy clouds block sunlight, so there's less insolation, sun energy, reaching the ground. 2. Cooler than deserts. Even though it's near the equator, thick clouds and frequent rain keep the temperatures lower than in places like deserts. 3. Frequent thunderstorms. Large clouds cause regular thunderstorms, especially in areas near the equator, with around 75 to 150 storms a year. 4. Rain from cyclones and easterly waves. Weak cyclones and easterly waves bring rain that covers larger areas. 5. No hurricanes near the equator. Hurricanes don't form near the equator, but they can appear farther away, about 10 degrees east latitude. 6. Year-round rain. There's no dry season. Rain falls all year, though some months have more rain than others. 7. Reliable water supply for plants. Consistent rain ensures that crops and plants have enough water most of the time. 8. Rare droughts. Occasionally, droughts happen which can harm crops that need lots of water. This climate is perfect for dense, lush rainforests where plants thrive with the constant warmth and high amounts of rain. Places like the Amazon and Congo rainforests are examples of tropical rainforest climates. Absolutely. Let's take this step by step, as if we're creating a picture of the rainforest in our minds. We'll look at each part of the rainforest in the simplest way, so you can understand what makes it so unique and how plants there grow. I'll explain each point with examples and comparisons to make it super clear.
1.
The perfect climate for plant growth. Warm temperature and lots of rain. Tropical rainforests are warm all year, like a natural greenhouse. It never gets cold. They also receive a lot of rain almost every. Example, imagine a plant that needs warmth and water to grow. In the rainforest, it gets both all year, so it doesn't stop growing like plants in colder places might. 2. Evergreen trees with broad leaves. Evergreen trees? Evergreen means that these trees keep their leaves all year long. They don't lose their leaves in the fall like trees in colder climates do. This means the rainforest is always green and lush, with leaves growing continuously. Broad leaves. The trees have wide, flat leaves that can capture a lot of sunlight. These leaves help the tree absorb sunlight, which they need to make food through a process called photosynthesis. Example. Think of these leaves like big solar panels on a tree, helping them gather as much sunlight as possible in the shade of the forest. Hammer 3. Lots of different types of trees. Diverse tree species. In rainforests, there are many different types of trees growing together. In a small area, you can find hundreds of different tree species. This is called biodiversity. Example, if you look at a 2-kilometer area in a rainforest in Brazil, you might see about 300 different tree types. Compare this to a forest in a colder place where you might only find a few types of trees. Hammer 4. Selva, the dense equatorial forest. What is selva? Selva is a term often used to describe the dense, thick rainforests near the equator, especially in South America. In the selva, trees grow very close together and extremely tall, making it hard to see through the forest. Example? Imagine standing in a selva. The trees are so close and so tall that you can barely see the sky above. It's like a huge green wall around you. 5. Tall trees competing for sunlight. Why are trees so tall? Trees in the rainforest grow very tall to reach the sunlight. Because so many trees are close together, they're all trying to reach up to the light above. The tops of these trees are like umbrellas, forming a roof of leaves high above the ground. This roof of leaves at the top is called the canopy. It's so thick that it blocks most of the sunlight from reaching the forest floor. Example. Imagine you and your friends are trying to see over a wall. You'd all stand on tiptoes to get higher. That's what the trees do. They grow taller to get to the light. 6. Very little sunlight on the forest floor. Only a little sunlight reaches the ground. The canopy blocks sunlight, so only about 1% of the sunlight reaches the ground below. The forest floor stays dark most of the time. Effect on plant growth. Since it's dark at ground level, very few plants can grow there. In places where some sunlight peeks through, there might be a bit of undergrowth, plants like vines, mosses, and small plants that grow in the dim light. Example, imagine being in a room with just one small window. Only a little light gets in, so not much can grow in that space. Number 7, special plants in the rainforest. Epiphytes. Epiphytes are plants that grow on other plants, especially high up on tree branches. They're not harmful to the trees, they just use them as a place to live and reach sunlight. They don't grow in the soil, but on other plants. Examples of epiphytes. Orchids, ferns, and mosses are common types of epiphytes you'd find in a rainforest. Lianas are woody vines that wrap around trees. They start growing on the ground and use the trees as support to climb up to the canopy to reach sunlight. Example of lianas, picture thick ropes hanging down from trees. That's what some lianas look like as they wind their way up to the light. 8. Summary of the rainforest vegetation. 1. Perfect climate. Rainforests stay warm and wet all year, helping plants grow quickly and continuously. 2. Evergreen and broadleaf trees. Trees stay green all year and their wide leaves help capture sunlight. 3. Rich variety of trees. Many types of trees grow close together, making the rainforest incredibly diverse. 4. Tall trees and canopy. Trees grow tall to compete for sunlight, forming a thick canopy that blocks sunlight from reaching the ground. 5. Low sunlight on the ground. Only a little sunlight reaches the forest floor, so few plants grow there, except for some vines and mosses. 6. Special plants, epiphytes and lianas. Epiphytes grow on other plants and lianas climb up trees to reach sunlight. Number 9. Why this matters. Rainforests are unique ecosystems. The tropical rainforest's layers, from the tall canopy to the dark forest floor, create a home for thousands of species of plants, animals, and insects. Each layer supports different kinds of life. Importance of biodiversity. The many types of plants create an environment that can support a wide variety of animals and insects, making rainforests some of the most biodiverse, varied places on Earth. That's the essence of a tropical rainforest's natural vegetation. By having warm temperatures, constant rain, and tall, densely packed trees, the rainforest creates a layered, vibrant, and rich ecosystem full of unique plant life. All right, let's go through this in the simplest way possible so you can imagine the amazing world of the tropical rainforest and the plants and animals that live there. I'll explain each part, word by word, as if we're discovering it together. 1. Tropical rainforests, the home of many species, full of life. Tropical rainforests are home to more types of plants and animals than any other place on Earth. They have more species of plants and animals than all other world biomes, types of environments combined. This means they're the richest places in the world for different kinds of life. Example, imagine if you put all the world's plants and animals in a list. Most of them would be from the tropical rainforest. It's like nature's biggest and busiest neighborhood. How about 2? Creepers and vines, like lianas. What are creepers? Creepers are plants that start growing from the ground and then climb up by wrapping themselves around tree trunks and branches. Sometimes they hang down from branches and reach the ground where they take root, grow from the ground. What are lianas? Lianas are a type of vine. They are plants that look like ropes. They start growing from the ground but climb up and around trees to reach the light at the top. Leaves and flowers at the top. Their leaves and flowers are often found high up where they get more sunlight. Example, think of lianas like jungle ropes you see in movies. They look like thick vines twisting around trees, climbing up to reach the sunlight. 3. Parasite plants in the rainforest. Parasite plants. The rainforest has many types of parasite plants. Parasites are plants that take water and nutrients from other plants which they need to survive. Example, a parasite plant is like a guest that doesn't bring its own food, but takes what it needs from the host plant. They rely on other plants for their food. 4. Valuable trees in the rainforest. Special trees with uses. The rainforest has some very valuable trees with wood that is used all over the world. These include mahogany and rosewood, strong woods used to make furniture. Coconut palm, a tree that gives us coconuts. Cinchona, a tree used to make medicine. Banana and plantain, trees that give us tropical fruits. Bamboos, plants used for making things like furniture, mats, and more. Wild rubber, trees that give us sticky sap used to make rubber products. Example, imagine the rainforest as a huge store of useful materials. Trees that give us fruits, wood for making furniture, and even trees that help make medicines. 5. Mixed forest. No single tree species.
Mixed species of trees.
In temperate forests, colder forests, you might find many trees of the same kind growing together, but in tropical rainforests, you rarely find a large area with only one type of tree. Instead, many different kinds grow together. Commercial use is limited. Because there isn't a large area of just one tree species, it's harder to cut and use these trees for businesses. Example, imagine a fruit basket with all different types of fruits. That's like the rainforest. You won't see just apples or just oranges. There's a mix of everything. 6. Animal life in the rainforest canopy. The canopy, top of trees. The very top of the rainforest, where the tallest trees reach, is called the canopy. Many animals live here, including birds and bats. What they eat. These animals feed on insects and other small creatures that live in the trees. Example, picture the canopy as a busy place, like a city full of life, with animals flying and feeding among the treetops. 7. Layers of animal life. Different levels for different animals. In the layers below the canopy, there are more types of animals. You can find birds, mammals like monkeys and sloths, reptiles like snakes, and invertebrates like insects and spiders. These animals eat leaves and fruits from the trees and sometimes small insects. Example, it's like a huge apartment building with animals on every floor. At the top you have birds and bats. Below there are monkeys, snakes, and insects. Each layer has a different resident. 8. The forest floor, home to many animals. Animals on the ground. On the forest floor, ground level, you'll find both carnivores, meat-eating animals, and herbivores, plant-eating animals. This ground layer is dark, but animals like jaguars, tigers, and deer find shelter here. Example, imagine this layer as the bottom floor of the rainforest apartment. This is where animals like big cats, who hunt other animals, and deer, who eat plants, live. 9. A huge number of insects. Insects everywhere. The rainforest has an incredible number of insect species. For example, in a 16 kilometers area of rainforest in the Canal Zone, Panama, there are about 20,000 different species of insects. Example, imagine a classroom with 20,000 students, each one different. That's how diverse the insects in the rainforest are. 10. Summary of the rainforest's plant and animal life. 1. Tropical rainforests have more types of plants and animals than any other place on Earth. 2. Creepers and vines, like lianas, climb up trees to get sunlight. 3. Parasite plants grow by taking nutrients from other plants. 4. Valuable trees, like mahogany and rosewood, are found here, but they're all mixed together, making it hard to cut for commercial use. 5. Animals at the canopy top eat insects and live in the highest branches. 6. Layers below have a variety of animals, birds, mammals, reptiles, and insects. 7. The forest floor has both herbivores and carnivores, like deer and jaguars. 8. The rainforest has a huge number of insects, around 20,000 species in some areas. Tropical rainforests are like nature's biggest treasure chests. They're filled with an enormous variety of plants and animals, all living together in a lush, green and busy world. Every part of the forest, from the top canopy down to the dark forest floor, is full of life, each with unique plants and animals that depend on each other to survive. Let's dive even deeper into the tropical wet and dry climate, or savanna climate, in the simplest way possible. We'll look at what it is, where it's found, why it has different seasons, how the weather changes, and how it affects the plants and animals. 1. What is the savanna climate? The savanna climate is a warm climate that stays hot all year round. It has two main seasons: wet, rainy season, when it rains a lot; dry season, when there is almost no rain. This type of climate is also called wet and dry because it has a clear wet season and a clear dry season. Example, imagine the African grasslands where animals like lions, elephants, and zebras live. This is the savanna climate.
2.
Where is the savanna climate found? The savanna climate is found near the equator, the imaginary line around the middle of the Earth. It's usually found between 5 degrees and 20 degrees latitude on both sides of the equator. Some of the main places with savanna climates are Africa, for example, Kenya and Tanzania; South America, for example, Brazil and Venezuela; Australia, especially the northern part; India and some other places in Asia.
Number 3.
Why does the savanna climate have two seasons? The savanna climate has a wet season and a dry season because of how air and wind patterns change over the year. A. The wet season, rainy season. During the wet season, the area is affected by something called the Intertropical Convergence Zone, ITC. What is the ITC? The ITC is a band of air that circles near the equator where warm winds from the north and south come together. When these winds meet, they create warm, rising air. Rising air cools as it goes up, which makes clouds and brings rain. So when the ITC is over the savanna, it brings the rainy season. B. The dry season. After the wet season, the ITC moves away from the savanna and the dry season begins. Instead of the ITC, trade winds and high-pressure systems move in. Trade winds, these are winds that blow from east to west near the equator, bringing dry air. High-pressure systems, these are areas where the air is heavy and doesn't rise, so no clouds or rain form. Because of this, the savanna has a dry season with little to no rain. Number 4, how the wet and dry seasons affect the savanna climate. The savanna climate is shaped by these two seasons. Summer, rainy season, lots of rain. Everything grows, especially grasses and plants. Winter dry season, very little rain. Grass and plants turn brown and dry up, and there's less food for animals. This cycle of wet and dry makes the savanna climate unique.
5.
Boundaries of the savanna climate. The savanna climate doesn't go on forever. It has boundaries or edges. A. Closer to the equator. The closer you are to the equator, the more time the ITC stays there. This means areas closer to the equator have more rain and might be tropical rainforests instead of savannas. B. Farther from the equator. As you move farther from the equator, the ITC doesn't reach these areas as often, so they get less rain. These areas are closer to deserts or semi-arid regions, which are drier. 6. Plants in the savanna. The plants in the savanna have adapted to survive both the rainy and dry seasons. Grasses. The savanna has lots of tall grasses that can grow quickly during the rainy season. Scattered trees. Trees like acacias and baobabs don't grow in thick forests but are spread out. Special adaptations. Some plants have deep roots to reach water during the dry season. Others have thick bark to protect from fires, which happen often in the dry season. 7. Animals in the savanna. The savanna climate supports a variety of animals that are adapted to live with the wet and dry seasons. During the wet season, there's a lot of food and water, so animals can find plenty to eat. During the dry season, water becomes harder to find, and animals might have to travel far to find it. Example animals: grazers like zebras and antelopes eat the grasses. Predators like lions and cheetahs hunt the grazers. Elephants use their size to reach higher branches and travel long distances to find water. 8. Summary of the savanna climate. Hot all year. The temperature doesn't change much because it's near the equator. Wet and dry seasons. It has a rainy season in the summer and a dry season in the winter. Special plants and animals. The savanna has tall grasses, scattered trees, and animals adapted to survive both wet and dry times. In the end, the savanna climate is a warm, fascinating place where plants and animals have adapted to live through a regular cycle of rain and drought. This cycle of wet and dry seasons is what makes the savanna such a unique and lively environment. All right, let's explore the savanna climate in the simplest way possible. We'll go over where this climate is found in different parts of the world, describing it so that anyone can understand it clearly. Where is the savanna climate found? The savanna climate can be found in many parts of the world, mainly near the equator. Here's a breakdown of some of the largest savanna areas by region. 1. Latin America, South America.
Llanos of the Orinoco Valley.
This is a large grassy area near the Orinoco River. It's in Colombia and Venezuela. Guiana Highlands, a highland region with some savanna areas, found in parts of Venezuela, Guyana and Brazil. Campos of Brazil, another large grassland area in Brazil. Here you'll see both open grasslands and some scattered trees. Example: think of the Llanos as a big grassy plain where you'd find animals like capybaras, big rodents, and caimans, small alligators. This area has the savanna climate with wet and dry seasons. 2. Africa. Africa has very large areas with savanna climate. Let's look at two main parts, south of the Congo Basin and north of the Congo Basin. South of the Congo Basin. This area is known as the veldt. It stretches almost across the continent from coast to coast. Countries with savanna climates here include Zaire, now known as the Democratic Republic of the Congo, Angola, Zambia, Mozambique, Tanzania, Uganda, Central Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, parts of Madagascar, also called Malagasy, north of the Congo Basin. This large savanna area is often called the Sudan region. Here you'll find countries like Nigeria, Cameroon, Central African Republic, Dahomey, now called Benin, Togo, Ivory Coast, also called Côte d'Ivoire, Eastern Guinea. Imagine African savannas with tall grasses, scattered trees, and animals like lions, zebras, and elephants. The savannas here experience a rainy season and a dry season, just like in Latin America. Asia. In Asia, savanna climates are found mainly in southern and southeastern Asia. Countries with savanna-like regions include parts of India, Myanmar, Burma, and Thailand. Example: in India, some areas have a wet season when the monsoon rains come, and a dry season when there is very little rain. 4. Australia. Northern Australia has savanna-type climate areas. These areas are mostly open grasslands with scattered trees, and they experience a hot rainy season followed by a hot dry season. Example: Northern Australia's savannas are home to animals like kangaroos and wallabies. They rely on the rainy season for food and water. Summary of the main savanna regions in the world. Latin America, found in the Llanos, Guiana Highlands, and Campos regions. Africa, south of the Congo Basin, Veldt region. North of the Congo Basin, Sudan region. Asia, found in parts of South and Southeast Asia. Australia, found in Northern Australia. Why does the savanna climate appear in these areas? The savanna climate appears in these regions because they're located in a zone where the weather patterns shift throughout the year. Near the equator, the savanna zones are often affected by both wet and dry winds, which creates a rainy season and a dry season. Key features of savanna climate. Hot temperatures, it's warm all year because these areas are close to the equator. Seasonal rains, there's a clear rainy season followed by a dry season. Adapted plants and animals, only plants and animals that can survive the changing seasons thrive here. Examples of life in the savanna: Africa, lions, elephants, acacia trees; Latin America, capybaras, caimans, grasses; Asia, wild elephants, monsoon grasses; Australia, kangaroos, eucalyptus trees. In short, the savanna climate is found in warm areas close to the equator across multiple continents and has a unique mix of wet and dry seasons that shape the life and landscape of these regions.